Northaven family, this is Connie Marshall. I have the pleasure of introducing you to Shawn Fauver, who I'm sure most of you know, but we're here today to get to know a little bit more about her. So Shawn, welcome. We're glad you're here and we're glad you said yes.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So we always like to kind of start at the beginning. So tell us a little bit about your, where you were born, a little bit about your upbringing, that schooling, that kind of thing. Tell us about that.
So I was born in Newport Beach, California. I'm a beach baby and I love the water. And Laguna Beach is one of my favorite beaches. And I was raised in California, went to high school, started junior college there, and then I went to Europe when my parents. So I think everybody knows that I have foster parents, and they are Dutch. And my foster parents split up when I was a little older than 17, but they were contemplating moving back to Holland. And so I wanted to go. And so I had graduated from high school. So my mom helped me get on an adventure to see if I could go to school in Holland. And so I went to Holland and applied to nursing school there. It was a diploma school. And so you work you get theory for a few months or, schooling, and then you do practical work. You work in the hospital. And so I did that. I got accepted to a nursing school there. And, when I look back on it, when I'm trying to do something that I think I can't do, I remember those times. Although I was 17, and I think, during that time, you just feel invincible. I could speak Dutch because I was raised, but not well enough to go to school in Dutch. And anyway, that's what I had to do. And so it was just a crazy adventure. And I was terribly homesick for a long time when I was there. But I made a lot of incredibly close friendships. And I just told myself, well, if I fail this next exam, then I'll go home. And I kept thinking I would fail, but I didn't. It was an absolutely incredible experience. But I went home to visit my dad and decided that I was, just still very homesick. And he said, well, just stay. So I came back to the States and I kind of started over again. I picked up junior college, and over the years, it took me probably 8 years, I'm thinking, before I ended up joining the military. That's kind of a long story I won't go into, but I joined the military and the Air Force and got a scholarship to TCU. In the meantime, I took a lot of, preparatory classes, and I went to ROTC, and then I served a little bit of time in the military, but I got out on an honorable discharge because I was coming out. And so at the time you couldn't do that. And anyway, so then I was out for a couple of years and decided, or I was working as an RN for a couple of years at Harris, downtown Harris Methodist. In the meantime, I've moved to Texas. That's where I am. Yeah, I'm sorry, because I went from the Air Force. I was stationed in Louisiana, which was a huge shock coming from California, of course. Mm-hmm. And then got the scholarship to TCU, which was in Texas. In the meantime, this story's getting way too long. In the meantime, I got married and then came out and got divorced. And so I finally wound up in Texas and just never have, and went back to school, got my graduate degree from UTA as a family nurse practitioner. And then started my career as a nurse practitioner. I worked over in South Dallas at Martin Luther King Jr. Center and Lincoln High School. I shared my time between that for a while, and then went to a couple of other places before I wound up in Decatur, Texas, which I think a lot of people know because I've talked about that often. At a family practice up there with several doctors, which was like the perfect place to work because I was allowed to do as much as I wanted to do. I got to spend time with the patients. It was a true family practice. The physician I worked with actually delivered babies, and it was absolutely amazing. And then I ended up moving into, I changed jobs at the end because the commute, I was in Dallas, and the commute was like an hour and a half each way. And so, yeah. And so after 20 years of working there, I went to Parkland, which is where I am now, working with adolescents. I do some families still if they need me in other departments, but primarily I'm dealing with ages 4 to 24, and most of it is probably adolescents. It's the school-based clinic in Seagoville, White Rock. There's like 13 of them that we rotate around in. So.
Well, it sounds like you didn't do what a lot of us did, and that is you sort of start off thinking you're going to do one thing and change to other things. It sort of sounds like you always knew that medicine was your calling. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, I remember when I was very young, I had really high aspirations. I wanted to go into neurosurgery. I don't know where I got that idea. Or a neurologist, perhaps. I don't know if it was surgery but neurology interests me. And I wanted to be a doctor, and somewhere, and I don't know where it came from, but I think somebody told me, and I don't know who it was, why don't you go into nursing first and see if you like that? And at the time, I should have gotten an advisor. I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but I went nursing. And whoever it was and I can't remember if that was my parents. I don't know who it was anymore. But instead of, saying, no, I really want to. And that's, I think, kind of fits in with my personality, that I was just like, oh, okay, well, if you think, if that's what you think I should do, then that's what I'll do.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah. And so I did, which I don't regret, because I don't have regrets. I would say overall, other than that, there are some things I think being a physician would have given me some more independence with things, and but being a nurse practitioner has been fantastic, and I'm glad I had that opportunity. But I always tell students, if I'm working with them, if they have any thought that they want to be a physician, I'm like, just do it. They're like, well, I might go into nursing. I'm like, especially don't go into nursing. Those are 2 different tracks, and you're going to have to start all over again. So if you want to, do it when you're young and you don't have mortgages and all that mess. So yes, I did. I don't think I answered your question. Yes, I did always know that I wanted to go into medicine, Connie. Yes.
That's fascinating, because I couldn't be any more opposite. Like my thing with, if you're going to do something to me, like give me a shot or give me stitches or something, it's fine, just don't make me look. I can't even look. So yeah, medicine was not my calling by a long shot. So I admire people that did go that route. So good for you for doing that. So talk a little bit about your spirituality, or I think I'm going to be right when I say your lack of spirituality growing up. You were not church. Is that correct, growing up?
Yeah. My parents were, my dad is actually Catholic, and his family is Catholic. And my mom was not, if I think about that correctly, I don't think they had any religious preference. And she considered herself agnostic. I don't know, atheist. I mean, but she was definitely very agnostic. And she thought a lot of it was kind of quote unquote nonsense. But she sent us, I think you've probably heard the story, to school, to Sunday school at a very young age, to a Church of Nazarene that was down the street, because she felt it would be ignorant not to at least know about the Bible, because I'm sure we were like clueless, like who Jesus was or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, so we went, and, kind of true to form for me, I guess, I took it super seriously. And, I guess they told us we were supposed to read the Bible every day and blah, 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 blah. And so I was doing that, I wouldn't go play. I'm like, no, I have to read the Bible every day. So my mom was like pretty freaked out, like, okay, this is ridiculous. You guys aren't going. So I was the hero of my brothers and sisters, because they pretty much were like, I don't remember, I think as a kid, we were probably, looking for whatever fun there was in it. and I obviously took some of that seriously, but it wasn't because I think I felt it truly. I think it was more because I'm the type, if you tell me this is what I got to do, I'm going to do it. I want to know the rules and lay them out. I'll do it. And because I certainly don't want to go to hell. And I'm sure they probably told us if I didn't do it, I don't know. And so that wasn't going to be me. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. I'll do my 20 minutes or whatever it is a day. And
Right.
so, yeah, it was. And so we didn't do any more. I mean, we were exposed to church through some friends who were Catholic. So occasionally we'd go to church with them if we spent the night at their house because they had to go to church. But, for kids, it was fun because we got to kneel down and we got to go. We'd sneak up and take communion and eat I don't remember if it was wafers or what they ate. But, and I don't know if they had wine. And we drank whatever it was. And, we were like, wee. And of course we weren't supposed to be doing it, but we thought it was great fun. So, yeah. And then I think I went through a phase when I was a kid, and I think I've told that story too, where I had a girlfriend that her family, I'm sure they were fairly conservative in whatever religion they were in, but she and I talked, and we hung out a lot, and she believed very strongly. And I don't know, we got into like, we were writing notes to God. And one day we were together and my family had gone somewhere and I wanted to stay and play or whatever. And we swear that we looked in the window and saw a hand or something. I don't remember what it was. And of course the two of us, I can't even remember how old we were. We were pretty young, and it was a sign. And she said, "Oh my God, Shawn, you have to write God and tell him all blah, 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 blah." And I was like, okay. And so we were writing notes. And of course my mom found them and thought I had absolutely flipped. And, I don't remember I think that girl moved away, but my mother might've also said, "You don't need to hang around her so much." So, anyway, that was about it until I got older and started, thinking a little bit more about it.
Right. So that's actually kind of leads into my next question. So, you've been at Northaven for several years now. And so how would you sort of define your spirituality now, or your belief in God, or your faith? How would you describe it now as a full-grown adult?
I would say my faith now is very strong, and it's as opposed to it's like 180 degrees different. Like I floated through life without faith, and now I can't imagine doing that. So, before I start this interview, I have to take a couple of minutes and be quiet and say a prayer. When I start my day, it's with meditations, it's decisions I make, and I'm learning, because, it's so interesting to think now from years ago, like how people would say, talk about a relationship with God. And I was like, I don't understand that terminology because, one of the, my partners one time, her grandmother spoke in tongues. And I think I've told that story too. And so we tried to do that. And because she would say, well, when I talk to God or something, and I remember the first minute I was looking at her like, okay, you talk to God? And she's like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay, just to clarify, do you actually hear God? And she's like, well, no. And so it just took me a long time, but I get it today. I get that, or I don't get theirs because obviously it's different than mine, but I get a relationship. And, Jack Soper used to talk a lot about the covenant, and it's just amazing to me because just continuing to work, to read, to go to classes, to ask questions, to pray, to meditate, just makes this huge difference in being able to understand that, and it's sort of come with time. But, yeah, my faith today is strong. It also, I will say, is, it just changes constantly. Mm-hmm. So while it's, and I don't want to say it wavers as much as it used to. I mean, I think I had more times. Now it doesn't waver. If I feel disconnected or something, then I know that's something within me. If I feel nervous, if I feel anxious, if I feel fearful, which is all the time, then I know today, as opposed to before, I'd want to go do something or, physical activity, which I still do. That helps a lot, release it. But one of my very first instincts is you need to get quiet. And that's really difficult for me because it's much easier to just go nuts and go clean everything, and just get that energy out. And, but I will stop and find sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it'll be 15, but, and you know what, it goes away. I feel better. And the more I try to do that, the more I do that, the better I feel. And so, I know now, I'm getting to know what that grace, God's presence is all about, that it is there. I don't need to worry about that going away. What I need to be concerned with is my behavior and how hard I'm working on connecting to that, for me anyway.
So do you have a favorite either scripture or a favorite Bible story or something along that line that either brings you peace or that you find you go back to for comfort?
It's interesting because there was a time I just couldn't have even answered that question because, I was like really, especially after I first got sober and, I was afraid of the Bible and didn't understand it. And every time I read it, it scared the heck out of me because I wasn't like these people. And so obviously maybe there is a hell, today I don't believe that, but today, and so, I think a lot of times I hear, you go to the New Testament and think about Jesus and I have, as a lot of people know, struggled with Jesus and not that I don't believe in Jesus, but anyway, the Old Testament at this point in my life is giving me a lot of comfort, or the Hebrew Bible, I should say. So, actually, sometimes the story of Job. One of my favorite people right now in the Bible is David. That story, because of what a complex person he was. From what I have read, I'm obviously no biblical scholar, but and some of the things he did, and yet the whole time he continues to talk about how much he loved God and prayed to God, and when he did some pretty horrible things, asked for forgiveness, and God never left him. And there is great comfort in that because it feels like, while I don't, certainly condone anything that David did, and I'm like, really shocked at some of these things. But the other side to that is, wow, aren't we all? Haven't I done some shocking things? And so there's comfort to me to know, and that's part of who God is too. That, we are complex human beings, and sometimes we do some really great things, but man, we can really do some pretty crappy things to one another. And then one of the verses that I have always liked is Psalm 27, which is, I'm just going to pull that up for half a second here. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And of course, because, fear is a big thing that runs my life. When I went into, when I got my black belt in karate, you pick something that you want to have put on your belt. And that was the verse that I put on there because I thought one of the reasons I started in self-defense and then actually moved on to get into karate was because I was feeling real fearful about, aging and like that I was this feeble old woman, blah, blah, blah. And when it was all said and done, and I get my black belt, and yes, I felt healthy and strong, but it dawned on me the longer I was in it and listened to a lot of the philosophy and all of that, it wasn't about, let's arm ourselves up with, whatever it is, your strength, your moves, your defenses. It was about avoidance, being aware. And then I had to think about, what is it that I'm afraid of? If I believe in God, and then who am I afraid? And so I've just always loved that, because it's a reminder to me, about my fears, and that, it's not the physical things that protect me, comfort me.
No.
So did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question, you kind of answered already, but I don't know if you want to, if there's another answer to this, but how has your life been different than you thought it would be? Maybe when you were 17 or 21?
Wow. In some ways totally, and in some ways not at all. I think when I was 17, I was just so excited to get out of the house that, independence, and I always envisioned myself, it was really important to me that I could take care of myself. I didn't want to have to rely on a husband, because at the time I was, not out. And even when I did come out, I wasn't looking for someone to take care of me. It was this thing running through me, which I still struggle with today, that it's not about, meeting it, turn it over, let it go, etc. So that part, I don't think that has manifested in my life. I have been, I am where I expected I would be. I never thought I was going to have children, so I'm not surprised about that. I think probably what I hadn't expected, because was through my path through sobriety and, becoming clean and having this spiritual life. I did not see that at 17. And especially not, as strong a role as that plays in my life. That I would say today is sort of a surprise to me.
Okay, well, we have one more question, and it borders on being morbid, but we hope you won't think it's morbid. But how do you hope that you're remembered?
I've said it before too, as a kind, compassionate, and loving human being, which is, I think, not always an easy thing to do, but that's what I strive to do. I appreciate that when people. And so many people show that to me, that compassion, that love, that kindness. And when I see that and receive that, I know I have to give that back. I have to be that. And that's what I want, when I die, that people, will think about that I made some difference in compassion or kindness or love or something in their life. So.
Well, from my end, that will definitely happen. You're one of the kindest people I know. So I'm honored to call you a friend. So thank you so much for doing this today. It'll be fun. I thought I knew you pretty well, but I didn't know any of the Holland story. I didn't know you've been in the military. So, I learned a whole lot about you today that I didn't even know. So
I didn't get into the juicy tidbits. So sometime we'll talk about that.
Great. Well, thank you again, Shawn. I appreciate it. You have a good rest of the day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.